This book isn't the mumbo jumbo, it's the reality. Clouded Titles by Dave Krieger, available at InfoWarsStore.com. And everybody needs to read this, because you can have a 100% paid for house that you paid cash for. You can go to CNN pieces about, where Bank of America foreclosed on the house that had been paid for 10 years that was paid for with cash in 2000. And I mean, that's a real case I just mentioned. And the judge goes, yeah, you can keep it. Now, another judge had him foreclosed on Bank of America, so they actually gave him the house back. But that's when the people were middle class and were lawyers and knew what to do, basically. The general public doesn't know what to do. And now, I mean, I remember 10 years ago breaking all this down with experts on air. People couldn't believe it. You mean with MERS? You mean they've sold my house 10 times in derivatives, or 20 times or 30 times? You mean nobody knows who has the deed? You mean it could be paid for, but somebody else has a deed saying they own it? In China, mainly, the communist Chinese are one of the biggest owners, or the biggest one group, and then your house is gone. Well, we've got updates for you on this today, because I saw a story last week that unsealed federal court documents, we covered this, showed that, yes, trillions were stolen by banks in houses they never even had a deed to. So now it's not just the deed was sold 10 times. Yeah, there it is. Unsealed court settlement records reveal banks stole trillions worth of houses. And then you scroll down, it's actually got the source. That's from Boing Boing, but it was actually, I think, put out in the Associated Press. The point is, it's worse than that, talking to Dave Krieger, so it's perfect time that he's here with us today. But this is what you've got to understand. Everyone I know, it's not just banking, but this is the big one with the mortgages. Every family member, my wife who does the bills, God bless her, because I hate doing it, my parents, everyone I know, Paul Watson in England, his wife, Ehan, has her own bank accounts and stuff, her own job and degree. It's happened to her. Everyone gets cell phone bills that are 10, 20, 30, but if you pay it, then it's 100 times more the next month. Everyone gets mortgages that are wrong. Everyone has their, it happened to me, escrow was already paid, escrow was over, they stole the money, started foreclosing, trying to foreclose, saying that I hadn't paid escrow. And I had to then start the lawsuit to make Bank of America, who'd bought my mortgage, 4 down the line. I'd banked with a little bank. Didn't matter, Bank of America still did it. And this was a decade ago. Okay, so everyone thinks it's just happening to you. My crew, all on their lunch breaks, what do you think they do every day? They either go pick their kid up from school who's sick or something like that, or go pay a bill, or they fight on the phone going, I have the contract, what are you doing? Folks, it is a kleptocratic global corporate structure working with the collectivist governments. And this happens when they bloom throughout history, like a viral bloom, a red tide bloom, an algae bloom. You have blooms of corruption where they get control of the regulators, and no one's going to stop them. So they're going to take everything. You need to understand that unless we unify against them and realize. That's one thing I had to commend Clark Howard about. He would talk about this even 5, 6 years ago. I listened to him on local station. I'm on 590. He would talk about, no, that's standard they do this. So it's all about seeing how can they cheat you. Okay? Then if a little guy double bills somebody by accident, the feds will come arrest him. But when it's done on purpose, because their lobbyists give millions of dollars a year, they're above the law. And Dave Krieger, you've got a long bio, but why don't you tell people in a nutshell about yourself? We're going to go into the next hour breaking down all this breaking news today. You came to Austin to be here with us today, and I appreciate it. And since you were on with us, I don't know, 6, 8 months ago, the big developments that have been unfolding.
Well, they have been, and thank you for having me back on, Alex. The bigger picture, when I started out doing title consulting was basically as a result of the book. And once we started to do the title consulting, then we found out that there became a need to assess chains of title. And a chain of title is basically from when the owner acquires the house, he gets a deed. It could be a warranty deed, a security deed, a grant deed, depending if he's in California. Just depends on the circumstances, but the deed is a representation of your ownership of the property. And so what happens is when you sign the deed of trust or mortgage, and I know you've been talking about MERS on a constant basis, well, one of the things that I do as part of my service is we audit county land records. And way back when, I told you that we were auditing Williamson County, but I was kind of tight-lipped because we were in the process of,
That's the crime syndicate north of Austin.
Yeah, well, this is actually, we actually have a county clerk there, Nancy Reister, who cared enough to bring us in and let us do the audit.
Oh, so she's good.
Yes, she looked at,
show us.
She's so good. We actually went through 5,278 MERS-related assignments from October 2010 to October 2012, And basically, we were looking for violations. What we found, we managed to get through almost 1,600, which is 30% of all those files. We found suspect robo-signing, surrogate signing, notary fraud, forgery, all suspect issues, document manufacturing, where the law firms would appoint themselves, which, of course, drew out 2 particular law firms, one of which was Bryce Vanderlyn and Wernick, who 2 or 3 weeks after the audit came out, February 19, 2013, this came out January 29th. February 19th, January 29th, they changed their name and their key players have reportedly jumped ship and ran. We've got proof from the Secretary of State's office from Texas. Now here's the next.
Well, let me ask you this question.
It gets better.
Out of thousands of counties nationwide, why Williamson County?
Well, one of the things is because of my relationship with the clerks in Texas, Williamson County said, look, we've got to do something. Our county coffers are being depleted.
Wow, I want to give them credit for something.
Exactly.
Because they usually do bad stuff.
Yeah, guess what they've done now? Here's 2 more contracts for you. These are contracts that were just signed today by the county judge in Williamson County. Williamson County is now going to file suit. In Nueces County, they're joining the Nueces County lawsuit in federal court against MERS Corp and Bank of America for unpaid fees in the land records in Williamson County, which has cost them tens of,
Oh, Williamson County's mad they're not getting money. Now I understand.
Williamson County is now joining the fight.
That's how mean they are. They'll even take on the banksters.
And they've retained the county that's actually with the.
They won't just kill your 2-year-old up there, but go ahead.
No, but anyway, the county that's representing Dallas County versus MERS Corp now is being retained by Williamson to go down to Nueces and Corpus Christi.
It does always seem like it's Texas fighting.
You know what? Hey, gotta love the spirit.
I just can't help it. It's addicting. But so tell us about all this.
Well, basically when we did the audit, we had to make a presentation. It's on cloudedtitles.com. That's the website. And it's a video presentation. And basically we made the presentation January 29th before the commissioner's court. And Nancy Reister felt like, it was a situation where we're going to fall on deaf ears. If we go to the commissioner's court, it's going to fall on deaf ears. I said, well, tell you what we'll do. We'll audit every single Williamson County elected official, judge, and we did. It's all in the book. Copy for you, sir. Anyway,
oh, wow.
So we've audited all the county judges, the precinct judges, anybody that had MERS involvement in there. We actually found one of those elected officials that represents Williamson County had 4 mortgage loans running in tandem at the same time. And I put a flow chart in the book to show them that, and they couldn't wait to flip open to the section to read about themselves. But, it's funny.
Well, explain this in layman's terms. What's happening here? I mean, you've gotten the government up there to understand how they've been screwed over, so they're now helping you investigate.
Exactly. What we basically have here is we have all these banks way back in '95 started what we call mortgage electronic registration systems. They are the banks, the Mortgage Bankers Association, the Fannie and Freddie. They're all involved in it. And basically, what they did was they created one MERS. It didn't work. Created another MERS. It didn't work. In January 1st, 1999. They came up with MERS Corp, Inc., and MERS. MERS is nothing but a shell. There's a new release out now.
Yeah, but to explain it in layman's terms, though, this was done because they didn't want to go actually file in the land records. They wanted to create a digital system so they could sell it 100 times.
Exactly.
It's a counterfeiting operation.
But here, you're going to love this. At the same time that Graham Leach Bliley repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, here comes MERS. In the same
counterfeiting.
1999. Boom. Out they go, and we have all of these... basically,
so instead of counterfeiting dollars, you counterfeit deeds, and one house is now 50. On average, how many times do they sell these? I see like 10 times is the average?
At least 10 times.
So what's the real average?
Well, I mean, you could be, I've told people in my classes that I teach, one's coming up in Chicago next month. We tell them, look, they could literally, it says in your paragraph, in your deed of trust, that they could sell the note or a partial interest thereof. They could literally split your note into 35 different pieces and sell 1/35 to 35 different trusts on Wall Street, who then take it and convert it into derivatives.
And then they sell it again.
And then they bet against it because they know it's going to fail.
But how do they take people's houses that never even had a deed and paid cash 10 years later? Because it's worse than that. If they can get away with taking a house that it's already paid for, why not just take one they never even had, right?
Well, exactly. And the thing is the reason that happens is because the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, which we found a lot of slander in title. We found one example in Williamson County, for example, where a homeowner had 2 houses. He sold one, and the title company and the trustee appear to have screwed it up to the point to where instead of when the house that he sold to this woman, they used his legal description from his own property on hers when they did all the documents. And everything in the system had his house on it. His legal.
I was about to say, I've seen that with CPS in Austin, where they'll use a kid from 5 years ago taking your kid. They don't even bring in a new file to the judge. They just bring in an old one and swear it in. I mean, that makes like North Korea look not corrupt. I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, you know, we knew that it was going to come back eventually to bite them, you know, where it counts. But the only thing that these people understand is when we attack their pocketbook. There's a brand new case out of California now that's just come out of the 5th District, Appellate District, called Glaske versus Bank of America. And everything that we've been saying in the book, this case lends perfect credence to.
By the way, you're like 5 times more excited than the last time you were here.
I am. I'm pumped
you said this just broke the last...
Yeah, this particular news here with Williamson County, it hasn't even made the national wires. We are exclusive on Infowars.com with this information.
Well, thank you. And I should add, you've been in the news a lot with some lawyers that are winning. So you're really on the vanguard of this. Let's go through some of this. Well, I mean, keep breaking down what's happening here for people.
Well, you know, in essence, what we're seeing is we've got foreclosure mills that are also members of MERS Corp. And this new piece called Shell Game MERS Contrived Confusion by Robert M. Janes, who's an attorney out of New Mexico, in 125 pages, he drills down into the real McCoy about MERS and MERS Corp. MERS has no money. This entity is called the MERS system. And the way I explained it to the...
It's a front company like the Federal Reserve.
It's a storefront. So what they do is they
cut out.
Yeah, they got this big umbrella, and basically all the members are members of MERS Corp, which has now changed its name to MERS Corp Holdings, Inc. And if you use the 2009, and you know every attorney needs to get this that's fighting foreclosure defense, they need to get this piece. And it's off of esprouts.com. But they need to get this and read it because it unveils where Janes got in there and drilled down even more to find out that the entire issues with where it says MERS on your document actually means MERS Corp. So that means MERS Corp, which is really pulling the strings, is not represented on your contract, which means the entire contract...
It's a fraud.
Yes, is subject to challenge.
So it shows you, oh my gosh, that's why you're so excited.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited.
Oh, man.
So, you know, we're going to be teaching...
But their answer will just be nuke Chicago and bring in martial law. You know this mafia is not going to go up without a fight.
Well, I hope they don't do that while I'm teaching my chain of title assessment workshop.
I didn't just say Chicago because we're on a great station up there, but I've always seen that as one of their targets also, from my own research. But, well, the CFR likes to tell us what they're going to do, but it'll be a small nuke. They'll probably only kill like 10,000 people. They're just going to use the nuke they're going to detonate as a reason to bring in martial law. Let me ask you this. And I don't mean to get off on a side issue here, Dave Krieger, but let's talk about this. What would you do if you were this global banking mafia that's done this not just here but worldwide if the people were onto you? That's why I say they're going to stage something big. They're going to launch a new war. They're going to do something. I mean, because everybody's onto them now. What are they going to do?
Well, you know what I did the day that we did the presentation to the commissioner's court? I brought an armed bodyguard, and when the clerk found out that I was bringing an armed bodyguard, she had the entire room sealed off with sheriff's deputies to make sure we could get through the entire presentation. We can't trust these people. We don't know what they're going to do. We have a dead notary in Las Vegas that testified against Lending Processing Services, which is an obvious third-party document manufacturer. She ends up dead, you know, Marilyn Monroe style, sleeping pills by her head. She's laying on the floor, doesn't make her sentencing hearing. She's admitted before grand jury to signing 150,000 documents. She signs the guy's name. He's in California.
By the way, when you were in Army intelligence, did you ever think anything like this?
No, I did. I just...
You were in Army security, even worse.
Yeah, it would be... It's so,
you guys couldn't cook up something like this, could you?
No, we wouldn't. It's all disinformation.
Yeah. Anyways, this is crazy.
Yeah, so it gets nutty because she admits to the grand jury to have 150,000 signed documents within a 5-year period that she signed that fraudulently were executed. She signs the guy in California's name and then notarizes it, and then it gets filed, and she admits to it. She gets 1 count of notary fraud. She's got a plea to, day of sentencing. She doesn't show up. They find her dead in her apartment. So, you know, and I'm telling you, most of the clerks...
I tell you what, stay there. This is important. We'll be right back, folks. This is big breaking news on the Loving Bankers. Dave Krieger, a really interesting guy. You got to read his book, Clouded Titles. It breaks it all down so you can understand that your house can be paid off 20 years ago. They may try to take it. And the ways to defend yourself up front, you think the courts are going to protect you. Many courts will just hand your house over to whoever because this is a kleptocratic system that's being established. We're going to do overdrive in the next hour. I know these callers have been holding for a long time on a host of other issues. So what I'll do is I'll run through some of those calls to wipe them off there. Alex and John and Steve and Ed and Robert. And then we'll open the phones up, specifically all calls after that. for Dave Krieger to talk about this big breaking news. But the book, Clouded Titles, available at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. All right, Dave, you got the floor. Continue here, breaking down for people how big this is. And there's also other lawyers and other researchers having victories as well. But I've also seen where attorney generals are trying to get laws changed to let the banks do this. Well, if they do that, the confidence in the free market economy is done. That'll even ruin things worse than their scams. So it looks like they're in a rock and a hard place here.
Well, the bigger picture, Alex, is that when you've got, again, you remember the attacks they did on Lanny Brewer, the assistant AG, AUSA?
Yeah.
He basically, dismissed them and then went back to work for the company that represents MERS Corp, the bunch that made the electronic database. Lanny Brewer and Eric Holder, the current AG of the United States, worked for Covington and Burling in D.C. It's a D.C. law firm that represents MERS Corp Holdings, which is basically the largest. And
I've read that as long as you hire them, but it's like by invitation, then you're allowed to not pay taxes. You're allowed to be offshore, but it's got to be certified by them. And then that's like a made firm. Boom. When they do it, you're now in the gang.
Well, you wonder why the banks aren't being prosecuted, and it's because the AG has ties to the banks, and that's how, through Covington and Burling. That's the assessed situation.
So it's like the Pelican Brief, literally.
It almost is, except nobody's car's blown up yet.
Wow, keep going.
All right. Well, anyway, so the bigger picture, and you were alluding to the fact that you could have a house at any time and all of a sudden you get a notice on the door and somebody's foreclosing on you. This is not an uncommon thing, and it's not going to be an uncommon thing because the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. You have all these intervening assignees in the chain of title because they jumped and they left the land records when the first mortgage or deed of trust was recorded, which was the security instrument that you signed. You sign a note and a deed of trust. Well, they take the deed of trust, they leave it in the land records, and the note goes out into Wall Street. And they literally could split it up into 35 different pieces.
So isn't it?
Never gets recorded.
So it's the original transaction that's the real law. Everything else is fraud.
Everything else past that is not recorded in the land records, and therefore we don't know who actually owns your house. And then the MERS system, which disclaims itself for accuracy on the website, where homeowners are supposed to be able to go look this stuff up. Well, what actually happens is the MERS Corp members are putting on there what they want you to see. It may not be the truth. So it's basically a big obfuscation and smokescreen. And
why would the establishment endanger the entire world political and financial system with a fraud this big?
The only thing I can think of that comes to mind, and God forbid it would be happening here, but the biggest massive land grab in American history. And they all did it starting with the derivatives markets back in 2001, 2002, and it just spiked in 2008, and then it collapsed.
Let's explain that, because I have a news article here today out of the Association of Corporate Counsel. City attempting to seize underwater mortgages via eminent domain, constitutional objections, potential investor losses. Yeah, bankrupt the national housing system and then nationalize it. I bet you run into this a lot. I still hear people saying, really? They're taking people's houses that have been paid for? I mean, people just don't get that this type of corruption is going on.
Well, it's because the right hand does not know what the left hand is doing. And after you have all of these people that have, literally pledged their property into the system, and the system has taken these notes and converted them into derivatives. I mean, the banks from 2003 to 2008, it reportedly made $53 trillion making side bets called credit default swaps. And literally, the sad thing about it is they structured the loans, it appears, to fail, and then they turn around. And I mean, that's where videos like Inside Job, which I know you carry and I know you've seen, came about, that Ferguson created and directed, because of the fact that, you start to see the bigger picture. But then when you see the fact that you have all these intervening assignees, what's to stop them from coming in down the road and saying, hey, didn't we have a piece of this guy's house at one time? I don't think we've ever collected on it. Let's go get it. And then they hire a law firm and boom, we've got.
And what they're going to do is create a big national office that taxes all homeowners to then pay homeowners back or to pay the assignees. They bankrupt healthcare to socialize it, but with corporate groups profiting from it. It's fascism. And that's what I've gotten from all our sources is they plan on bankrupting the free market private property system in this country.
Well, what really bothers me is this new PATH Act that's going on right now.
Let's explain that when we come back.
Mortgages are something that represents a security interest in their property. Now, the scary part about it is if you recognize that a national mortgage registry managed by a nonprofit group, nonprofits can be manipulated and their administrative fees altered. They can literally do anything they want. But if you've got a complete database that the federal government has access to of every single mortgage and deed of trust, every single security instrument in America, they know where the property is. They know who owns it at any given moment. At least they think they do. Because the bigger problem with the mortgage electronic registration systems is because of the fact that they jump from the land records into their own database. They've skipped all the intervening assignees out there, all these owners that bought and sold these derivatives on Wall Street. And so, you know, how is the federal government going to keep up with something like that that's been occurring for 13 years running?
So basically the mismanagement that brings down third world countries is now here.
It looks pretty doggone close.
So is that why they're buying billions of rounds of ammo and setting up secret military bases?
It's hard to say why they're doing that. You know, I mean, we're hearing that either Homeland Security's got it, TSA's got it. We have absolutely no idea what they're going to do with this stuff, whether they're going to take it out and use it on target practice, you know, to perfect their...
well, the TSA just bought enough for each agent to shoot 9,000 plus rounds a day for a year straight.
And why would the TSA need that much ammunition?
Well, they actually admit they're trying to drop the supply for us.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I wonder what they've got planned that they actually don't want citizens having guns and ammo. Plus, you failed. We knew this before. We already got plenty of guns and ammo, you idiots. I mean, well, they're just going to come round us up. It's going to be like jolly old Stalin again, and you're all just going to be able to rob everything and have your way and kick our teeth in. Ain't going to be that way, you dirty foreign banks, your little commie buddies. It's not going to be a cakewalk. And when we finally win the war, you know, you've heard of Nazi hunters. We're going to have globalist hunters.
As long as Americans still have hope and we still fight and we fight the good fight. And remember now, the way the court system is right now, you literally have to be prepared to appeal these things because the district court judges we're finding, a lot of them have derivatives backing their retirement plans. These are the very things that were securitized using the MERS system. And so there's a little
But they should know they're never going to get it anyways if they don't fix things now.
This is one of the reasons why we audited the judges in Williamson County, to bring it to their attention. Look, you need to realize what's going on here. Your own titles. Good luck selling this. What happens if years down the road you sell it to a buyer and all of a sudden a bank from your past comes back and forecloses on them? Guess what? When you sign a warranty deed to a new buyer on your house, and it comes before them, and these people come from the back,
you're on the hook.
You're on the hook because it says you warranty to defend the title that you sold to the new buyer. And if there's anything wrong and they get foreclosed on, they're coming back after you. We have cases going on in America just like that right now.
In fact, you just won a case.
Well, we have a case right now where the bank actually settled with the homeowner. The homeowner had to give the house back, but the bank had to give the homeowner money. And the reason that happened is that the mortgage got recorded before the warranty deed, so the borrower was not lawfully possessed of ownership in the land records. The land records represent constructive notice to the world. We have people right here in Austin, as a matter of fact, that I've done chain of title assessments for, that literally there's no legal description. There's no legal description in the land records that says what they bought. We have sellers conveying to buyers zero. No legal description, no situs address, no commonly known as with their street address anywhere in the warranty deed. And then we've got Fidelity National Financial coming back in 6 years later when Wells Fargo is trying to foreclose, and they're trying to insert a corrective warranty deed into the land records. And I've had title attorneys tell me they can't do that. But they're trying. They're going to do everything they can to get away with it, and they're counting on the court system, which I implore the court system. There are some judges now that are actually coming around and starting to look at this. If you live in the 5 boroughs in New York, they're at least going to give you the time of day. Up there in the 5 boroughs in the metro, especially in Kings County, with Judge Shack, who I talk about in the book, he's my hero. He literally has defended homeowners when they didn't even show up in court and told the bank, sorry, you haven't proven it up enough. But on the other hand, we've got a majority of the judges, especially if you live in states like Colorado, which right now they're looking at 2 major law firms for price fixing, and the Attorney General's office is actually investigating them. This is the kind of corruption that, you know, we're trying to root out.
This is the kind of corruption, folks, that if we don't turn this around, historically will bring everything down. I mean, all of you people that want to go along with this and think you're part of the establishment, this is country-ending type garbage, okay? Because that's what the rope-a-dope scammers do. Like with Too Big to Fail, all this. They keep you going, but they never even try to fix it during the Too Big to Fail agreement. They just start scamming even faster. Like, you know, derivatives are up from what they were just 5 years ago. They've only intensified all this.
Correct. But, you know, and I want to allude to something you said earlier, Alex. You were talking about renters. Renters sit by and say, well, that doesn't affect us. Well, excuse me, but they securitize commercial paper, too. The commercial paper has been securitized on Wall Street, and literally the same thing could happen to your apartment complex, and the bank could come in and kick everyone out and put everyone on the street because all the money that you paid the landlord, it went in the landlord's pocket. It did not go to the mortgage payment. And all they have to do is get in the jam where they have a medical emergency or something where they need that money, and they take that money and they don't pay the mortgage payment, and that whole apartment complex is going to get vacated.
But I can't believe how the public always thinks about themselves like, well, I don't have stock in coal plants, so what do they shut them down? You're getting the power from it. When they shut things down and get rid of due process, it affects everything. I mean, if this continues and they continue taking houses that aren't theirs and doing this, I mean, what's it going to do to the economy?
Oh, I know. And in Florida, they just passed HB 87, which basically was, you know, something concocted by a realtor who's a state rep. And what they basically are alluding to here is all the foreclosure defense attorneys are rallying in the state saying, hey, this is denial of due process. You are going to allow a non-judge, an unelected state judge, an attorney who is a non-judge to get on the stand and sit there and help clear the docket? In the next 3 years, Florida is going to have 1 million, over 1 million foreclosures backlogged into the system, which is 300,000.
So they're creating a kangaroo court.
Literally, they're creating a court that basically says, well, I think, you know, the bank owns it. We got judges that say, well, if the bank didn't own it, they wouldn't have filed a foreclosure suit, so we're giving it to the bank. Thank you very much.
It's so crazy.
Why would the bank lie? Well, you know, read Glaske versus Bank of America, folks. Dial it up, Glaski. This is what we've been saying in Clouded Titles. Came out in Glaske versus Bank of America, where all of these derivatives that were securitized on Wall Street in these trusts, well, the trust came after, you know, Bank of America is representing the trust, and the judge ruled, you know, against the homeowner, went to appellate court, which is why I said you have to be prepared to appeal your case. You know, you can't just sit there idly by and think just because you got beat in the state courts or in the federal court doesn't mean that you're not going to win an appeal, because this is how Glaske actually occurred in the state court. What actually ends up happening with Glaske is they're saying that the trust, the way the note was conveyed into the trust pool who claims to own your loan, it never made it there because the assignment finally filed in the land records is 6 years too late. Each one of these trusts has what we call a pooling and servicing agreement, and it has a cutoff and a closing date. And if the note's not conveyed into the pool by the closing date, which was generally 90 days after you signed the papers, it never made the trust pool. End of story. It's a void transaction.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and this is even what you're talking about. It's even in the mainstream news now. But it's kind of like, oh, big deal. We'll figure it all out. Figure it all out. I'm seeing it in the news all the time and getting calls where people have paid for houses still, and they're coming and saying, get out. And the courts, if you don't know what you're doing, will take your house, folks. That's why you got to read Clouded Titles. Available at InfoWarsStore.com. Your calls are coming up. I had tried everything. I'd cut back the amount of food I was eating. I was lifting weights and jogging, but nothing was working. My body was literally starving for minerals and trace elements as well as key vitamins. And as soon as I had that, I immediately could eat half of what I was eating previously and be satisfied. Now, there are hundreds of great products at InfoWarsTeam.com, but I want to point out the 3 that have helped me lose 37 pounds in just 2 months. Products like Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst, and Rebound. When I started taking the Tangy Tangerine and other products every day, I lost more than 37 pounds in just 2 months. Now that's results. I want to challenge my listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com and to order just 3 of their products, and you will see the changes in the way you look, feel, and in your appetite almost immediately. Start your journey to health and wellness today. InfoWarsTeam.com. All right, we're continuing through the hour with live overdrive here. Some stations carry it, a lot don't. Everybody can find the free video feeds at Infowars.com/show. And then subscribers, of course, can see the nightly news, 7 o'clock every night. I want to thank all the listeners for their support. We're just looking for justice here. He's got more news he hadn't gotten to on the latest stuff going on with Bank of America and others. But right now, we're going to go to your phone calls. Let me just ask you briefly, who is the worst of all these big 6 mega banks?
We see more of Wells Fargo. They hold more mortgages in America than any other lender, followed by Bank of America than Chase. There's a huge issue with WAMU and Chase because we're finding out now from depositions from Lawrence Nardi that Chase never actually got the loans. And the FDIC was controlling this whole thing. So, you know, we're still trying to drill down into that. And every time we try to get close, they move for protective orders, which means they're trying to cut off our discovery. Obviously, it's a procedural move, and we still need to keep that.
But, I mean, this is the whole government and the big banksters. This is a premeditated deal.
You know, it's hard to say it's premeditated, but when you look at the cause and effect, somebody's being influenced here because I can go to judicialwatch.org/judge, and hopefully I'm going to find, when I do a background on a federal judge, I'm going to find his financials. Sam Sparks here in Austin has 15 Ginnie Mae securitized portfolios in his financial statement. That's recorded on judicialwatch.org/judge. And he was appointed by legislative an act from George H.W.
It's unbelievable.
And he doesn't want MERS cases in his court. He bullies these attorneys out of here. I mean, this is what he does. Every attorney I've talked to complains that he yells at him and says, get that MERS case out of my face.
Unbelievable. Just let them do whatever they want. Lisa in New Hampshire, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call. I have a similar issue that you're discussing today. Bank of America had a system error. They threw my house into foreclosure in their system, and they started sending my payments back.
Yeah, they call that a systems error.
Yeah, and then it took a month to fix, and then the system showed there was no payments there, so it threw my home back into foreclosure.
Yeah, no, they want to be able to show, from my research, that repeatedly you were in foreclosure and they made a deal with you, but you didn't keep it, Judge. She's been back and forth 3 times. We move you, hand it over immediately. Am I correct that that's what's done some of the time? Because I've seen that where, oh, we give you a chance now.
It's worse than that. We have a case in Massachusetts right now where all these Bank of America contract workers and employees, whistleblowers, have come forward with sworn statements saying that we were told to not do loan mods at all. We were told the more loan mods you can deny, the better. In fact, the more loan mods you deny and get into foreclosure, the better chance you have to win a Target or Bed Bath & Beyond gift card.
Yeah.
Gotta love that.
Ruin old ladies' lives for $50, baby.
And this is
Judas
right
did it
now.
for 30 pieces of silver. You do it for nothing. Yeah.
It's out there. They literally are saying we were told to just go ahead and continue to do what they call dual track. In California, they've now passed SB 900, which prohibits dual tracking if they grant a loan mod. Well, what do you think? I mean, I'm not a big fan of loan mods because of the fact I know that dual tracking is going on at the same time. Dual track basically means they're taking money from you, even if it's reduced payments, and then they turn around and they're foreclosing on you and moving to foreclose at the same time they're taking your money. SB 900 says they can't do that anymore, so that's a bit of a reprieve for California homeowners.
Unbelievable. Let's talk to Larry in Michigan. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is really interesting. You know, it used to be you get a deed, and then you get, like, title insurance. Now it's this MERS stuff. What is the best vehicle or whatever you want to call it?
Ooh, that's a good question. How do I buy a house? How do I do that?
It's amazing about title companies because the title companies, guess what, are the next target. What's happening here is the title companies, because a lot of them are MERS members, you know, members of MERS Corp. We should, you know, there's a new language out now. MERS is just a shell game. MERS Corp is the real entity, and this is who everyone is suing now, is MERS Corp. This is who Williamson County is getting ready to jump into the game down in Nueces County and file suit against MERS Corp.
Although, once you talk to my writers, they should do a report that Williamson County is set to sue MERS Corp.
Yeah, they are doing that. And, you know, the bigger picture, when you look at what the title companies are doing, if you look at, sir, your Schedule B on your owner's title policy, there's more than one kind of title policy. When you go to closing, you're actually paying for a lender's title policy. You're insuring the lender against all the misdeeds. Well, the lender already, if you ever notice these lawsuits, the lender claiming to own the property is listed MERS as a defendant. Why is that? Because they're coming after, and it appears they're suing all the unknown assignees in the MERS system to keep them from coming back later on after they take the house.
So like a king rat, it's in there running the others off as well, like a hyena over the baby gazelle it's eating. I tell you what, sir, stay there. I want you to have a comeback to that. Larry in Michigan. We'll be right back. The system wants to surveil us like we've done something wrong, while it has been caught engaging in every form of crime, abuse of the public you can imagine, and it just goes on and on. And then the tyranny, the black uniforms, the helicopters, the surveillance, is about protecting the corrupt ruling class that's taken over. And it's not like their corruption's making us wealthy. The British Empire, if you actually served it aggressively, you could actually get wealthy off of it in a lot of cases. And I would still say that was immoral. But this is an empire we pay for and then go bankrupt. And then they're all offshore on private jets going, It's so hilarious to the New World Order. David Krieger is our guest, and what an exciting document you have here. I want to get through the next 4 or 5 calls and then have you make some final comments here and tell us about some of the other big news out there. But you know, I wish this just wasn't true, because it's creepy knowing this much institutional corruption goes on. But hey, if we let the private Federal Reserve since 1913 issue tens of trillions of their own fiat currency and get interest off of it, well, why aren't they going to start more elaborate forms of usury and counterfeiting? I mean, where's the Secret Service when you need them? Because I'm no lawyer, but I do a lot of studying. This sounds like something the Secret Service would get involved in, because this debases the whole currency in the whole country.
Well, and then when you try to introduce competing currencies like Bitcoin and other things like that, they shut it off. You know, and this is something that's been ongoing. You know, we have people trying to insert their own brand of justice. This is a real problem, because the system, and I teach these in my workshops, the system actually has tools to fight the system. You use the system's own tools against it. We have so many people out there trying to put what I describe as a giant square peg into a very small round hole, which is our justice system. And the problem is it doesn't fit. And so, you know, and they wonder why they're getting beat up. And the one thing that, I have to clarify this, and disagree with me if you want. That's what the phone line is for. But the thing is when you move, and this I teach you this in the seminar, when you are in this constitutional mindset, 110.1 says obligation of a contract shall not be impaired. Well, guess what? They have mortgages. They have deeds of trust. Those are contracts. When you sign the contracts at closing, if you want to help the system out and you go into closing and you see your deed of trust or mortgage, and it has an 18-digit number underneath it that says MERS, mortgage identification
Don't
number.
be a party to the fraud.
Walk away from it. Stop getting MERS mortgages. That's what they want you to do. These refis especially are loaded with MERS. HELOCs, loaded with MERS. And by the way, the only saving
Well, that's a good point. If the American people know all this now and go along with it, they become a party to the fraud.
Exactly. Yeah, the house I just bought, I told the bank, I said, no MERS, you don't sell it, you don't securitize it, you don't do anything with it. You hold it.
And that brings us back to the last guy. A lot of people I know that have been getting houses since all this came out the last really 4 or 5 years, but in the decade before, you can work with title companies. You can go get it clean. You can demand all that, can't you?
Well, no, actually, the title company can't clean your file. You have to go to court and do what's known as a quiet
but I mean,
title action.
but I'm not talking about after the fact. People are able, if you do it right, to go get a clean sale or cleaner, right?
Well, a lot of that depends on what the title company's willing to insure, because once it gets into the MERS system, understand that you have somebody who owned the property, and then they're going to convey it to you. But
listen, you don't agree that they're allowed to sell it over and over again.
No, I think that there's a real problem because of the fact that, the note itself has been sold multiple times, and you have all of these people.
Oh, so it's bad because you're buying a note that's already bad.
Well, no, you're actually buying a property that may have been corrupted by multiple owners who never recorded their interests.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And you don't know whether those interests, like you said earlier, are going to come back down the road and bite you in the teeth.
So wait, I mean, what do you do? Buy, even if it's raw land, it's going to have some history.
Well, not as much as, with a house.
So you buy raw land and build on it.
That's my best bet. And then don't go to the bank and don't get a loan unless you happen to be one of
That sounds like the way the old timers did it.
Well, you know what? That's exactly what there's a new video out. It's not new, but it was by John Campbell, and he explained the way the old system works. You went to the bank. You knew who the banker was. The bank knew who you were. He knew where you worked. Everything was local. You didn't have to worry about him taking it and securitizing it on Wall Street. You knew that he was going to record his interest in the land records, and when you went down there, you knew who owned your loan. You knew who had a security interest.
And by the way, that's how towns worked. Everybody knew your granddaddy. They knew you were a farmer. They knew you were going to build this house and pay on it. And that was the end of it. You got the loan because they knew who you were.
Exactly. And they wanted you to make the payments. Banks really don't want to own your house.
Well, what does he do then? How does he get a house?
Well, the thing is that, when I looked for my house, I basically went through and I used the MERS system and I looked up all the addresses to see if MERS was involved. If it was, I moved on. Unfortunately, MERS is affecting over 70 million pieces of property in America. That's 60% of all.
So that's it. You don't go with a MERS piece of property.
Yeah, you really try to find something. I mean, I really encourage, like I did the last time, before I bought a house, I actually bought 3/4 acre, put a house on it, paid cash, done. No, it was clean title. If somebody was going to foreclose on me, there would have to be some sort of history there. Unless somebody, like what happened in Williamson County to that poor fella who had 2 houses and sold one, and they used the wrong legal description. That's on the trustee. They have errors and omissions insurance. So do the title companies. Guess who underwrites most of the E&O? GE Capital Corporation. So we have mega corporations insuring mega corporations. And so in order to get around this, when you go to closing, look at where it says on your title policy, under Schedule B of your owner's policy, we cannot insure property or insure a claim if it's not recorded in the land records. Well, if it's not in the land records, we don't have to insure it, which means you get to pay the legal fees.
All right, let's go to JT Coyote out in Colorado. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. I've been fighting the banks now for about 5 years. It seems like every time we get them to back down, then a new mortgage or mortgage company will come in and they start the proceeding over again. I pulled up a title search on the property and from the county clerk, and it's loaded with MERS clear back to the very first loan we got. So we've been holding them off by asking them basically to hold, show us a note, show us that you own it, and then we'll pay you.
Yeah, well, that's another angle is use their fraud. A lot of people do this to stay in the house without paying to get some of your money back. Is that what you're doing?
Well, that's what we're attempting to do, because the amount of, as the loan matured, as each payment, it would get higher and higher and higher until there was a point where, there was no way we could make enough money to pay the monthly payment. And then one of us lost our job, and boom, we were in foreclosure. And
I remember you write for Infowars.com sometimes, and you're a well-known pro-gun guy. You even got SWAT teamed when you were showing the house, was it 4 or 5 years ago, that realtors saw the reloading equipment in the basement. And now the Seattle mayor is saying, if you see a gun, call the police, even if it's in somebody's house. Seattle mayor to launch gun-free zone program for private businesses and other areas as well. So, I mean, I'm just a side issue, just what a police state this country is. But well, what's your question specifically for our guest, Dave Krieger?
What I would like for David to address is how one can clear the MERS from the title. Is there any way, including litigation, to clear?
All right, well, let's get his answer on that. Thank you, JT. Go ahead.
Well, here's the big thing. JT, you've got a lot of MERS mortgages. You just said you went to the land records and you pulled all this stuff up and you see MERS in there. That means each time you took out a MERS loan, multiple intervening assignees bought and sold your loan on Wall Street over and over and over again. So when that happened, now you have all these specific chances for unknown people, unknown parties down the road to come back and foreclose even after the fact. Let's say that you decide to sell your house. You couldn't sell it with all those mortgages there because, one, if you know you can't convey clear title, and there's even conditions in your title policy that say if you know something to be an error and you don't tell the title company about it, they don't have to cover you.
So it's fraud all the time when most mortgages have this in it and people are selling houses.
It makes you wonder why we even have title policies in the first place if the title companies aren't going to insure. Now it's turning out to be one of these games where the title company's looking for every reason why not to pay. But yet you cough up $700 for an owner's policy at closing. But to answer your question, JT, you're looking at basically quieting title. There's your litigation. But the problem with quiet title is, even to convey, here's an argument for you. If I go into court and I'm standing in front of a judge and I say, Your Honor, look at it this way. I've got a situation here where I've got MERS all over my mortgage, and I believe that there are unknown intervening assignees that might claim an interest. If I sell this property in order to help the lender mitigate his damage, I'm fine, and I can't do that. I can't even sell my house because the title's clouded, but yet you're going to give this to the bank, judge, and they're going to turn around and sell it to some other sucker, investor or homeowner that's going to come in and literally inherit all your problems when you convey.
And that's their master plan with Too Big to Fail. With everything, they get you to invest in the fraud, and now you don't want to end it because everything's connected to it.
Right. And
then they have a crisis where that collapses, and they get more power promising to fix it, and then that collapses. This is their plan.
Well, the problem is here, the judiciary, the court system we've got in America hasn't seen anything yet. It's about to get jammed up and jelly tight.
Well, all I can say is, folks, do what they say and hand over your house to the foreign banks, or you're racist. I agree with MSNBC. You're like, what does this have to do with racism? I don't know, but we're all racist. Let's talk to Vincent in Washington. You're on the air. Go ahead.
How's it going, Alex? Dave,
good, sir. Welcome.
First-time caller, official one-year listener. Benghazi woke me up.
Well, good to have you on board, my friend. Go ahead.
My question is, back in the mid-late 90s when housing started growing crazy and people were getting these zero interest loans and zero job loans, and I was scratching my head back then, and then we had the big housing bubble. Now what you're seeing on TV is all these reverse mortgages, and I think they're trying to attack the older people that's actually paid off homes. I want to know what was your guys' thoughts on reverse mortgages. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, sir. That's a good question. Dave Krieger here, our clouded titles expert.
It's amazing if you ever study the Harry Dent and the Dent method, he can gauge over a 36-year period how the economy shapes itself. Well, this thing kind of threw a monkey wrench, this whole mortgage debacle threw a monkey wrench in the thing. So you see all the middle class right now, the baby boomers at average age of 42, buying homes and getting into the situation now with what Vincent's talking about, and they're getting these loans that are ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets, liar loans where it's stated income. Just tell us how much you make. Well, I'll tell you what, you only make $10,000 a year. Let's add a zero to the back end. Now you make $100,000. We can get you a loan. Countrywide's, bank officials rumored to say, hey, if you can fog up a mirror, we'll give you a loan. So here they're attacking the middle class. By the time they get to the baby boomer, see, they got to have another way to take care of the third of the population now that's over 65 that's taxing the health industry. And so what they've got to do
is bring death panels in.
Yeah, and that's well, now we have to have reverse mortgages because now they want to attack the state and take all the equity, whatever equity you have, and they'll bleed that out using a reverse mortgage. I don't like them. I wouldn't recommend them.
Well, what about these balloon mortgages, these adjustable rates and all the rest of it?
Those are insane, Alex. I don't know why anybody would take one of those. I have clients calling me, or wannabe clients calling me, and they said, well, we found out in 2009 that we've signed an interest-only mortgage. And I went, wait a minute, you're in Wisconsin. That's a deficiency state. Oh, my God. You have that OMG moment? Well, realize that what they've signed basically is rent with a penalty at the end, a penalty that they will go to court and take everything you own until it's all fully collected once they've sold your house. Because, I mean, you literally have no equity. This couple took all their 401k, threw it all into their late payments to bring it up to speed, and still got behind because he was on unemployment. So this family is making, literally, they got $2,000.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point.
It's a sad story.
No, I mean, these globalists all declare bankruptcy and walk away, and they always say that's immoral to declare bankruptcy. But when the whole system's rigged against you, I'm not going to give people individual advice, but just walk away, declare bankruptcy. Don't pay any of it. It's all a fraud anyways.
Well, that's why I put Section 3, strategic default, in the book, because you got to know what your options are, and that's where you'll find them in Section 3 of the book.
Absolutely, because they're just going to skin you up one side and down the other. I mean, it's like... I mean, it's unbelievable because they just use us like schmucks if we sit there and, quote, do the right thing and they're fraud.
I mean, we're hardworking, honest Americans. We want to do the right thing.
But it doesn't matter. You pay them everything you got and they still cheat you.
Exactly. And that's the problem, especially when you're dealing in issues like dual track and you've got the mega banks who played in more of these derivatives than the little guys did.
Man, I sure wish we could just arrest all these bankers.
I wish we could too, but I think we're going to have to change presidents to get that done.
Yeah, what's your take on Obama and all this?
This guy has done relatively little, if anything, to fix this program. HAMP is a joke, a total joke in my book. In fact, I put it in the book. I don't rely on HAMP. Very few people.
It was just a stalling technique.
Well, I mean, this is it. When you go to get a loan mod and you think you're eligible for HAMP, I mean, you need to run the numbers first.
So it's worse. It's more false hope.
That's exactly it. They want to give you hope. They want to keep you hanging on. But what really is bothering me is one of my clients from a week ago said, we got a letter, and I actually saw the letter, and the bank actually told them, you haven't been late enough on your payments for us to do a loan mod. I'm going, gee, how late you need to be? 90 days?
They want to jack it up.
No, it's 90 days. What happens if there's default insurance? 90 days elapses. The bank goes to the insurance carrier and says, hey, they're in default. It's been over 90 days. Pay up. The bank has been made whole, and they're still coming after your property.
Unbelievable.
And then they go cash in. They've got all these derivatives. And
fraud on fraud on fraud on fraud. You know what the
CDS is? It's an insurance policy. It's a side bet. Guess what happens? You know, like Detroit, they're in Chapter 9. Why are they in Chapter 9? Because they bought these bonds. A lot of these municipalities, there's at least 20 that were listed just on Yahoo.
David, stop right there. Folks can go to your website and sign up for your different events that you put on. We sell the book Clouded Titles by David Krieger at Infowars.com. You can link through at InfoWarsStore.com. Everyone should read this. It's the best book out there with the real facts, not any Patriot mythology stuff. This is the real deal. Available at InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or calling 888-253-3139. I got to a lot of callers, but I'm out of time. Joe, Rita, Bill, Jason, I apologize. Love to get you back up soon on the phone to take their phone calls. We're going to go to rebroadcast after this break because I got a lot of work to do. I'm going to get exhausted if I keep going. I'm going to interview you for Obama Deception 2. Everybody and their uncle's in it. You're going to do a great job. I got the nightly news coming up tonight, 7 o'clock Central. This is a fight, folks, and bending over is only going to make it worse.